The day my grandson was supposed to get married was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. Instead, it became the day his bride tried to humiliate me in front of 200 guests and accidentally destroyed her own future. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where the story really begins, because what happened at that altar didn't come out of nowhere. And by the time it ended, the entire church went silent in a way I will never forget. The church was beautiful that morning. White roses lined the aisle, soft sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, and a gentle violin melody floated through the air. Guests whispered excitedly as they took their seats. Everyone was dressed in their finest clothes, and I sat quietly in the second row, holding my small black purse, trying not to cry. My grandson, Daniel, was getting married. Daniel wasn't just my grandson. He was the child I helped raise. When his parents divorced and his father left, I was the one who stayed up late helping him with homework. I was the one who worked 2 jobs so he could go to college. I was the one who sat in the front row of every graduation ceremony he ever had. And today, I was here to watch him begin a new chapter of his life. But the woman he chose to marry, well, that was where the trouble started. Her name was Vanessa. Vanessa was beautiful, tall, confident, perfectly dressed, the kind of woman who walked into a room like she already owned it. But from the very first time I met her, something about her felt cold. Not rude exactly, just calculating. She smiled often, but her eyes never did. And every time Daniel wasn't looking, the kindness in her voice disappeared. Still, Daniel loved her. And when you love someone, you sometimes ignore the warnings right in front of you. So I kept quiet. I supported him because that's what grandmothers do. The ceremony began exactly on time. The music swelled, guests stood, and Vanessa walked down the aisle in a dazzling white dress that probably cost more than my first car. Daniel looked nervous but happy. For a moment, I allowed myself to relax. Maybe I had misjudged her. Maybe everything would be fine. But then something strange happened. Vanessa stopped walking right in the middle of the aisle, and slowly she turned her head toward me. At first, I thought she was just smiling politely, but then she walked toward my row. The music faltered slightly as the violinist grew confused. Guests began whispering. Vanessa stopped directly in front of me. Then she leaned down just enough for everyone nearby to hear her, and she said something that made the entire room freeze. "Well," she said sweetly, "look who decided to show up." A few guests chuckled awkwardly, but I felt my chest tighten, because I knew that tone. She tilted her head and looked me up and down. My simple navy dress, my sensible shoes, my silver hair. Then she laughed softly. "You know," she said loudly, "this is a very expensive wedding." The room grew quieter. "And I just think some people should remember their place." My heart pounded. I could feel every pair of eyes in the church slowly turning towards us. Daniel looked confused at the altar. "Vanessa," he called, but she ignored him. She leaned closer to me and spoke just loud enough for the nearby rows to hear. "This is a high-class event, and frankly, you look like you wandered in from the wrong neighborhood." Gasps rippled through the guests. Someone dropped a program, but Vanessa wasn't finished. She straightened up and smiled brightly at the crowd. "Don't worry, everyone. We'll make sure the photos crop her out." A few uncomfortable laughs broke out, but most people just stared, shocked. I felt heat rush to my face. For a moment, I considered standing up and leaving. After all, I was 72 years old. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. But then something stopped me, because Vanessa had made one very big mistake, one she clearly didn't realize yet. You see, Vanessa believed something that wasn't true. She believed I was just a poor old grandmother who Daniel kept around out of obligation. She believed my quiet nature meant weakness, and she believed she understood exactly who I was. But she didn't, not even close. Daniel finally stepped down from the altar. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" he asked. She waved a dismissive hand. "Relax, I'm just fixing a small, seating issue." Then she turned back to me and delivered the final insult. "If you're going to stay, at least try not to embarrass the family." The words hung in the air, heavy, cruel, unnecessary. The entire church waited. Everyone expected me to shrink or cry or quietly leave. Instead, I smiled, and that was the moment Vanessa realized something was very wrong. I slowly stood up. My knees weren't as strong as they used to be, but I stood tall anyway. Then I looked directly at her. "Vanessa," I said calmly, "do you know who paid for this church today?" She blinked. "Daniel's family, obviously." "Yes," I replied, "that's correct." Then I opened my purse and took out a small envelope. Inside was a document, one Vanessa clearly never seen before. You see, Daniel had never told her something important, not because he was ashamed, but because he simply didn't think it mattered. To him, I was just Grandma, the woman who baked cookies and told stories, but to the rest of the world, I was something else entirely. I handed the document to the wedding planner standing nearby. She read the first line, then her eyes widened. Slowly, she turned toward Vanessa. "You might want to see this," she said quietly. Vanessa snatched the paper impatiently. Her expression changed within seconds. First confusion, then disbelief, then pure panic. Because the document contained the official company letterhead of the corporation that funded half the buildings in this city. The corporation Vanessa knew very well. The company she had bragged about hoping to work for someday. The company whose CEO was rumored to be extremely powerful, extremely private, and extremely rich. Vanessa looked up at me slowly. Her voice barely worked. "This says—" "Yes," I said gently. "It says I'm the CEO." The silence in the church was absolute. Guests stared. The violinist had completely stopped playing. Even Daniel looked stunned. Vanessa's face drained of color. You're joking," she whispered. I shook my head. "No." And then I delivered the sentence that ended the wedding before it ever began. "And since I'm the one who is paying for everything today, I suppose I also get to decide whether the ceremony continues." Vanessa's confidence shattered instantly. The woman who had just tried to humiliate me in front of 200 guests suddenly looked very small, very nervous. I didn't mean," she stammered, but it was too late, because the room had already seen exactly who she was, and so had Daniel. He looked at her with a kind of disappointment that broke my heart. "Vanessa," he said slowly, "why would you talk to my grandmother like that?" She reached for his hand desperately. "I thought she was just—" She stopped herself, but the damage was done. Everyone knew exactly what she meant. Just an old woman, just a poor relative, just someone who didn't matter. Daniel turned away from her. Then he looked at me and asked the question that truly mattered. "Grandma," he said softly, "are you okay?" I smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm perfectly fine." But the wedding wasn't. Vanessa tried to recover. She apologized, she cried, she begged. But the truth about someone's character tends to appear in the moments they think no one important is watching. And today, everyone had been watching. The ceremony never resumed. Guests slowly filed out of the church. Daniel stood quietly beside me. Vanessa sat alone in the front row, her dream wedding collapsing around her. Before I left, I walked up to her one last time. She looked up with red eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but sometimes apologies come after the truth is already clear." Then I placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and said the final thing she probably never expected to hear. "I hope someday you learn that respect should never depend on someone's bank account." Daniel and I walked out of the church together, into the bright afternoon sunlight. The wedding ended, but our family hadn't. And sometimes, losing the wrong person is the best gift life can give you.